Okay. So we have Angela here. Angela is from Token Engineering Academy, and she's super excited to see this format come to life. So one thing that we always do, Angela, is when there is someone new on the slot, the new person must do an introduction how so that everyone gets to know and so on.
Okay. So do you want me to ask questions or should I just go?
No, just an intro.
Okay. I'm Angela. I started the Token Engineering Academy, and basically I started 2018 to run token engineering meetups. Met Trent McConaughey. He told me about token engineering. I thought, wow, this token thing is really huge, such a powerful tool, and designing whole economic systems with having these tokens as signal and then being able to design entirely new interaction beyond buy and sell in our current economic world. This is really powerful. So I decided to, oh yeah, let's do that. Let's build that. And in the last 2 years, I think we were able to establish a lot of great, let's say, elements when it comes to knowledge base, tools, also a great community. And still there is such a lot, huge universe of open questions to explore. But I really enjoy whenever we come together for the research groups, as you've seen it probably yesterday, or also in programs like that, coming together from all across the world with different backgrounds and trying to tackle the challenges we see and try to go beyond what we feel doesn't really work in our current economic systems. And this is why I'm excited with this group as well. So Danilo told me, hey, I have an idea, we should do that. And let's have mentors and let's bring them together with talents and with people who are eager to learn and to make progress together and get some partners on board to fund this. And actually, I think we can take a lot of learnings from this first round. This is why I'm happy to be here today, and also I would love to learn a little bit about you. Your background, I think we said hi, but I don't know that much. What your expectations as well, and then of course also, would love to follow your journey and see what we can do in the academy to grow the knowledge and to grow the people, like in all the current projects we are seeing continuously. People who started 1 year ago met each other and are still working together, and I think it's so super relevant to find allies. Good. That's about me. My background actually is design. I'm a designer, and then were for a couple of years in early stage startups. From the startup side, Omio, this is a travel platform, and also from an investor's point of view. And
me and Angela, we are working together on several projects and so on. And by the way, already giving a spoiler of what this mentorship program could become in the future. There is the possibility that at some point on time, we may have, for example, some research programs where we have some questions like, for example, how is inequality distributed on crypto? Or what's the effect of you deploying a certain kind of DAO? There is the possibility that in the future, we may have, for example, research programs coupled to mentors that, let's say, get funded by some of the organizations that, I mean, they do have a stake on a health growth. Oh, there is someone entering here. But this is really a spoiler. Who knows when I get back from the record. It maybe could be useful, Xavier and Austin, to maybe drop some words, just some quick words, so that Angela can know your backgrounds. Maybe you could start, Xavier.
Okay. Hi, Angela. I'm Xavier. My name is Rivaldo, but as known as Xavier. I came from the northeast of Brazil, but I live in São Paulo. I'm a physicist. I have a master's degree in experimental physics. I work with programming in physics teaching, and I'm a new student mentored by Danilo. And I'm very happy to be here today.
Have you, if I may ask a question, have you been involved into any Web3 crypto projects or anything like that yet?
Never. It's my first experience. I worked in a group, in a certain group. My project of master was I worked in the development of a new readout system of a detector in the LAGC. If you know LAGC.
What's that?
LHC, the certain project on Switzerland. They wanted for
It's a particle accelerator. It's my experience in working in groups of research.
Okay.
Yeah.
Feel free to drop a link or something. Would love to take a look. Okay.
And you, Austin?
Hi. I am located in Calgary, Alberta. So that's like Western Canada. And my background is I have a bachelor's in physics and music. I have.
I think once you introduced yourself, I remember this physics and music. Awesome combination. Yeah. Okay.
We have three physicists on Tehran here today.
Yeah. And would you call yourself a musician? Probably this is the wrong name for it. If you study music.
Well, I focus mostly on music composition, so not really performing, but like I was writing for like small chamber groups in the university, and they would perform.
Sounds good. Go on. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, and I also don't have too much experience in the cryptoverse. I kind of walked into it by accident because I was looking for something related to scientific programming. I also worked on like physics simulations and physics computing, that kind of thing.
And one final word on music. What was your instrument? So okay, study composition, but what instrument? I guess you play at least one.
Yeah, I studied piano for what is it, 15 years now?
Oh wow. Good. Thanks.
Sounds good. I think that we can start with the agenda today. So before we jump in over the last week, just to give a spoiler, I was invited to a certain hackathon called HackFS. It's probably to be an interesting, let's say, event to get to know about some of the technologies that are being deployed on Web3 and so on. I'll talk a bit about that later. And also another thing that probably I'm going to walk you guys through is about data access for retrieving data for any scientific purposes that you may need. So the idea is that we do have some resources like Ethereum ETL, Tgraph. There is a lot of things on BigQuery that allows, I mean, in a certain sense, the entire blockchain is a socioeconomic lab in the sense that people are doing transactions all the time for all kinds of purposes, and everything is on the open. And I'm going to show you guys how to access that so that, I mean, you can extract data, so that you can build visualizations, build dashboards. But we'll go over that after the usual. So let's start. So how it was the last week for you guys? I mean, any events that you did go, anything that you did learn? By the way, we did have that balancer simulations final presentations yesterday. I wasn't able to join, but if any of you guys did join, I would love to know, let's say, if you, what was the impressions? So yeah. Any of you want to start?
Oh yeah, I attended part of the presentations yesterday, and I guess I was a little surprised at the span of projects. Like some were very, very beginner focused, and some were very advanced and went over my head. Yeah, since then I was one of the things I was more interested in looking at, because I sort of understood, was the math challenges that BK presented. Yeah, so I've been going through that a bit since yesterday.
So what math challenge? Because I think there is more than one, right?
Oh, the math challenges?
Yeah.
I think I only saw two, right? There's like a beginner and an advanced one. But I've been looking through both of them and trying to understand what they're doing.
These are two notebooks with a collection of questions and various challenges, or you could say tasks, all focused on, okay, use the core value function and understand all the implications practically.
Cool. And Xavier, how it was the last week? What did you learn?
I took a look at the Hydra DX documentation and studied a little more about AMM. I read the links Danilo shared last week too. I also attended the Balancer simulations meeting yesterday. It was really cool, but I didn't understand some things. I'm a new student now. The first meeting of the Omnipool project will take place next Thursday, so I'll need help to prepare for it. And I studied a little about game theory too.
By the way, there are 3 recordings of workshops we had with Akaki, pretty cool ones. So I think a good crash course to game theory, dynamic or static games, dynamic games, complete information, incomplete information. So this is very, I'd say, good introduction, useful stuff. So I'm happy to share the links to the recordings as well.
That's great. And speaking of game theory, I just put a topic on the agenda today. It's one thing that I did ready today, and I'm still thinking over until now. Probably it's something that you are going to find interesting, Xavier, which is the notion of efficiency wages. Did you guys ever heard about that, efficiency wages?
No.
So it's an economic theory that explains why, even under free market circumstances, why do you have unemployment, and why the wages are sticky, in the sense that they exhibit rigidity in terms that they do not go down. Let's say if you take the employment, usually employers and employees, they are very reluctant to make the wage go down. Usually it only moves up. Let's say the way that it goes down is exactly by inflation, but this is another topic. So it's a very interesting theory. It's a mathematical theory that, let's say, makes use of, let's say, the use of economic rationality assumptions to demonstrate, say, you have unemployment every to, let's say, every day you have the usual supply and demand. And it's interesting because it's a mathematical model. It's possible to transform that into a model and use that to inform, any design considerations. But we're going to over the end of this session. So yeah,
is that different from the idea that there's always a certain percentage of the population that will be unemployed, and that'd be like people who are transitioning between jobs, or
it's a bit different. It's a very simple model. I mean, we are going to walk through it, and actually, it's a cool model precisely because it's very simple. But I'll save the spoilers for now. So yeah, so I heard, Xavier, that you did struggle a bit yesterday because, I mean, there was a lot of things that you did not understand. And I mean, you all know that one of the main functions of this slot is that, I mean, you can ask anything. I mean, I know that there are several confusing concepts at this ecosystem. It's always like, there is always a learning curve. So we're here to help. And I mean, there is anything that, let's say, you get into doubt or you didn't understand very well, or, I mean, space for questions.
No questions for now.
And you, Austin, do you have, for example, any question? It doesn't even need to be specific. It can be very open-ended too, because as I said, it's not questions and answers. It's questions and discussions.
Oh, I think I'd have to review the presentations that I didn't understand. I think in particular those the ones presented by Trent and Trang that I found interesting, but I think I'd have to review it in order to actually know what I don't know.
That's fair. So maybe one thing that we could do, I have selected some topics for today. Maybe we could walk through them, and I mean, if you guys have any question or have any things, we can sort of fork off and dive into the rabbit hole. So I'll share here my window here. So as you guys know, we have this log here that I'm going to dump any links or resources that we have. I'm going to copy and paste that and send on the chat here, just to make sure. By the way, this is a living document. So, I mean, feel free to add and comment things here at live time. By the way, Angela, given that you are here too, if you also know about any events, because I think one of the roles of the mentorship is first, we wanted people here to, let's say, have pointers for places where they can get more content, where they can have more learnings. Yeah. But I also think it's also, let's say, a place where we also point, for example, for events in general, for, let's say, where they can go so that they have more engagement with the community and so on. So, for example, I did receive an email today about this HackFS. I'm not we can't even open that. It seems interesting because this is going to be a hackathon. And Xavier and Austin, did you guys ever attend a hackathon or not?
No.
Not a hackathon, but more like a game jam or something similar.
Yeah. So, I mean, a hackathon is usually, it's because the term has been sort of extrapolated a bit, but generally hackathon is an event where you have a topic. In that case, the topic is being building the foundation for decentralized web, but a hackathon could be about anything. So, for example, sometimes the hackathon can be about something specific to a protocol, something specific to a blockchain, or it can be, for example, specific to designing. The idea is that usually hackathons, they do have a topic. And most of the times, the idea of the hackathon is to really let's say, get people together that have different compositions of skills and also, let's say, experience levels. So usually things on hackathons, they have a diversity of competence. So you have advanced people, beginner people. You have people that are, let's say, more versed in, let's say, smart contract development. You have other people that are, let's say, are more marketing oriented. And usually the format of the hackathon is that you have a certain time slot. On that case is July 30 to August 20. And usually by the end of this time slot, you are expected to, let's say, to have a proof of concept of a product. In the sense that, and usually you need to present something about that. You need to do a pitch about that. It's a very interesting format because allows you to, let's say, to increase your network, also, let's say, it's a relatively accessible way to, let's say, to have the actual experience working on something that usually resembles a lot the actual working organizations. Of course, there is a lot of variation, but in general, it's a relatively straightforward way to get to know how working on the ecosystem is. I did a bit there. I don't quite know who's organizing that, but the schedule at least it seemed interesting in terms of that of, let's say, existing technologies. So they are not exactly token engineering focused. They are more focused on the infrastructure, like, for example, EPFS, and also, let's say, there are also some seminars about specific applications or how you to use, for example, specific layer 2 solutions. It may be worth to, if you guys, for example, have the time and it's not already filled out, it could be good maybe participating in 1 or 2 seminars just to see what are they doing. And of course, there is the hackathon part where you have essentially team dynamics, and this is always an opportunity to, let's say, to get to know other people, and not only that, but get to interact with people that have different mindsets, that have different, also, let's say, ambitions and so on. So it seemed interesting. And any thoughts, Angela? If we know, for example, any event that's going to happen next week or 10 days from now, it's always cool to know.
Yeah, so you probably are already aware of that we are going to continue the sessions for TokenSpice. I think, Austin, you probably know from Sean. So TokenSpice is this new framework to simulate ocean markets, basically, as being a particular version of balancer pools. And this new framework is just in its inception, so to say. So there's no community around it, and no documentation, and no application cases like at CADCAD as we have it at this point. It's just made, and what we want to try out is building some of the components together with the community, of course, open sources, and then step by step have more and more use cases working on TokenSpice and not forking it, but improving the core TokenSpice framework and available agents, available netlists. Netlists are, in a way, the encoded description for the design of an experiment. And this is pretty exciting, again, because we are building core infrastructure for token engineering, and this will be on a weekly base. We just have to finally define the date and time. And some words on hackathons. So if you haven't been exposed to any crypto people or that much yet, I also think a hackathon is really a cool idea. Even if you can't write Solidity and feel, okay, I can't write smart contracts, no problem, because there are just many people there looking for exciting ideas, exciting team members, and it's just also good to get somehow become a little bit familiar with this crypto ecosystem overall. And the ETH hackathons, of course, are always large and Ethereum driven, and it's pretty exciting to be there. Of course, winning prizes is also interesting. For token engineering itself, we don't have hackathons yet, or I have heard about some. The thing is, for basic coding, like be it Solidity or be it even Python, there are so many standards already there. Standards for how code works. We have the test nets, we have the clients, we have the GitHubs, and this is already there, and we don't have that for token engineering. So it's just harder at this point to just throw out, okay, let's spin up a hackathon and just work on something, and at the same time less cases at this point. So I can't recommend any particular token engineering hackathon. Probably we'll spin up one ourselves in the community and academy, but yeah, certainly pick a hackathon like that to get immersed to the crypto people.
Yeah.
That.
One comment about hackathons, again, when compared to the token engineering events, is that usually hackathons, they are very, let's say, high-intensity events, in the sense that they usually have daily cadence, and depending on the hackathon, it may happen that people having work overnight. So it's a thing that, let's say, can be good or can be bad, in the sense that, I mean, it's always cool to read the hackathon description, see if it fits, because, for example, this one, I think it will be daily cadence, but it happens sometimes that hackathons are, for example, the entire weekend, and people simply go overnight. But there are other hackathons that they sort of distribute. The token engineering groups, like the research groups and so on, they usually have a more, it's way easier, for example, to conciliate with, I mean, with the data attributions. It's easier to have, let's say, a more sustainable pace. Hackathon usually they are not sustainable. It's a thing that, let's say, you do once and that's it, or maybe 2 times. But hackathons usually are not sustainable.
Or you create Polygon, right? So I mean, most of the projects as a result of a hackathon is just an experiment. Sometimes you continue to collaborate with those people because it was just a nice match. Sometimes you don't see each other never again. But Polygon was a hackathon project.
Yeah, I mean, there are several projects that have born from hackathons. It's an interesting format. I think
it's not 100% sure. Right?
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, if it's of interest to you guys, I think it's those weekly TokenSpice sessions. I think it would be great. I highly recommend you to attend. And there is this HackFS that, as I said, I got the news. I'm not exactly sure of how much to expect that, but if it is high-intensity event entices you, tem script, let's say, it's until tomorrow, the applications. And by the way, it's for free.
I wonder, just a question, where do you guys have a particular channel to communicate? Just in case I see something to quickly drop it, not sure if I then can find the HackMD.
So we've been using the Igaratá Labs Discord channel, but we didn't quite yet coordinate a channel. And actually, this is an interesting question, because I think that we have 2 options. One is that we already have the Igaratá Labs Discord, where we have a channel, and I mean, the other Danilo is there, Xavier is there, and so on. The other option is we could simply create a channel on the Token Engineering Discord and adopt that.
I think there is still, I now remember that we opened a channel at the TE Commons Discord, particularly for this initiative, so we can use it. Let me check.
Yeah, so if we have a channel there, let's use that.
It's called, oh wait, it's called EthicHub, I guess. Yeah, it's called EthicHub. Is this initiative still somehow related with EthicHub, or has this connection?
So the way that I describe is that EthicHub is sort of the case study, in the sense that suppose, for example, that I mean, we need a research project, or we need some platform to validate an idea. Then EthicHub is it's going to be the guinea pig, let's say. But the idea is not that the time is focused on at GitHub. The idea is that 80% of the time of the theory, 8 to 85%, is really to get immersed on the knowledge and the community. And the remaining 10 to 50% is those mentorship sessions and also using at GitHub as a guinea pig.
Okay, so we can use this channel. It's called EthicHub, so don't be confused. We can rename it. It's and this is at TE Commons.
Okay, let me, because it depends on the history.
Feel free to check it.
So given that the channel has started with being paid to learn, maybe we could rename that to, let's rename it to being paid to learn for now, and then we get another name.
Okay, I can't do it myself, but I'll try to sort it out in the background.
Yeah, okay. So I think it's the third time that we changed the location where, but okay.
We can also stick to your channel, so no problem here.
Yeah, but actually I prefer on the TSC because then people have more direct access to the. So I have changed the HMD, so there is the official channel, and then I'm linked to it. So for next things, by the way, guys, before I jump into data access and so on, do you guys have any questions, Xavier, Austin, about, about TokenSpice or about the HackFS, or, could be about anything.
I want to know more about TokenSpice. I hear about it, but I didn't understand what means, what it is.
So do you have a good description, Angela?
Yeah, there are a couple of resources. I have to pick it up. I think the best thing is either go to the Ocean protocol, you can also GitHub. Because actually the GitHub for TokenSpice is really well documented and there's a great description. And then for some more context, what this all is, there is a great video with Trent at the Balancer simulation sessions introducing it, and not only introducing TokenSpice itself, but also introducing the vision behind it. Oh yeah, you already have it.
Yeah.
So at this point, TokenSpice is a Python agent-based simulation where the market is an agent, the data consumer is an agent, the data provider is an agent, and this way, Trent set up some very first simulations for an ocean data market. And the diagrams you see there in the slide deck are his simulations on the sustainability loop. So he tried out how to set the burn rate for ocean tokens in order, and also the distribution to the ocean DAO in order to make the, let's say, the value production and the distribution of ocean to proposals in order to make this sustainable. And so this was the starting point of TokenSpice. And what's interesting here and how this is different from CatCat, Trent has a background in electrical engineering. And for circuit design in the 1980s, they started to apply AI to improve the circuit design, to run optimization. And there was this concept of spice with the hardware in the loop to have more realistic simulations. And in blockchain, we again have this challenge of, okay, a Python digital twin is, yeah, a twin of the real system with the virtual machine in the loop, with the smart contracts in the loop. And for particularly in cases where we already have smart contracts, it's just much more efficient to integrate these smart contracts to the simulation itself and not try to rebuild it in Python for precision, but also for efficiency. Imagine Solidity code is basically in a project like Ocean, there is an ongoing development on the Solidity code, and it just makes much more sense to know exactly what version of the system you're talking about and what to simulate here. And so he started to build TokenSpice, Spice as this reference to this electrical engineering Spice. And what he did for this very simple case was version 3 Ocean Markets. Now we already have version 4 Ocean Markets, and the goal here is to bring TokenSpice also to the version 4 of Ocean Markets. Then do some more work on the general code, also tests. Make sure that there are unit tests for all the code, and then start experiments or enable experiments on setting parameters. Because you probably heard about TokenSpice, this project that got a funding from OceanDAO grants. And here the actual, how should I say, what convinced the community to send funds to this initiative was that, imagine data providers in Ocean Markets, the general setup, Ocean Markets, I don't know to what extent you're familiar with it. It's a protocol with this vision of, okay, let's offer data sets on markets to make it accessible and available, but at the same time control access. So we have this problem in digital land that data is hosted in silos. It's normally not accessible. You can't have combinations, and it's hard to control access, and therefore hard to have open data markets. And at the same time, data is so valuable, right? And it's not a zero-sum game. So we could use data and make it accessible for all kinds of use cases. It's just people don't do it, and companies don't do it, and also we have data as public goods, but we could have much more, and it's because of make it accessible and control access. And this is the Ocean protocol, and they started with a very simple way of data consumption. There will be also data streams. Then there is, they launched just recently, how do you call it if you compute data on distributed systems?
Data on distributed systems.
It's just not the model to consume data. You download it. You rather send your algorithms to the server, and the data stays on premise. I don't know. There is a term.
Yeah, I don't know the term too.
Okay, good. But so they experiment and try to make it even more efficient, and also integrated to the, let's say, data science workflows we have today and in the future. And now, as a data provider, you can put up an actual balancer pool for your particular data set. You publish your data set via minting data tokens and deposit Ocean tokens in this data pool, so that we have always this pair of the data token and the ocean token. And then some particular dynamics start to come into play, like data stakers. People who stake on these data sets send their own ocean tokens, then data consumers, and based on consumption, we mint data tokens. So this is the general setup. But for data, imagine there is a project with a hospital, and they want to make COVID data on vaccination and infection rates. They want to make it accessible. Then somebody in the hospital has to set up the parameters for this data pool, meaning how many ocean are sent to this pool, how many data tokens should be minted overall, some more, the weights. And this is something that is tricky, and this is certainly not a mainstream task. And what this TokenSpice team wants to do is build a front end to make it easier for data providers setting these parameters, and the TokenSpice backend fits to this front end and makes some very basic simulations accessible for everyone. So this is the scope for TokenSpice. And the larger scope for TokenSpice is, of course, in the community, further develop this framework. And there's in the repository, there's nicely, I think, whoops, where is it? TokenSpice, we have the issues, and then also, should find it at the project, a Kanban board with all the next steps to be picked up for the community and work on it. Yeah, we'll further explore it in the sessions.
So this is very interesting because a lot of the projects on Web3, their development occurs on GitHub. So, I mean, if you, Austin, or Xavier doesn't have a GitHub account, I highly recommend to have one because, I mean, sometimes I even joke, a GitHub profile is way more valuable than a CV. And for example, it's interesting because here, out of development, they have this Kanban board that they are delegating, for example, what is in progress, what they are doing on the next days, what they envision for, let's say, the next weeks. And by the way, Austin, Xavier, did you guys ever had contact with a Kanban board before or not?
Yes, I have.
No, I don't. Never.
Okay, just to know, it's because it's one of the things that, let's say, for the people that are used to that, it's super trivial, but it's not exactly a thing that's taught on the school. So it's always good to explain a bit. But this is a scheme that is used a lot for task delegation over, especially when you are on remote settings, so that you cannot coordinate so closely. People do have, let's say, several tools and processes that they use, for example, to, let's say, make sure that what is being done is not being duplicated by another one. So one thing that, let's say, is very characteristic over the remote work is this transparency about, let's say, what we are going to do, what we are doing now, what has been done. But this is more of a curiosity, really. And yeah, so Angela has done a super good explanation about what was the Ocean Protocol, TokenSpice. I think that the Ocean Protocol is perhaps one of the most exciting projects on Web3 right now because, I mean, it's kind of it's kind of crazy for you to, let's say, you'll be able, for example, to generate any kind of data output, data that can be valuable, and you can be incentivized for publishing that. This is not a thing that, let's say, we do on the real world. So I think it's one interesting case, for example, where Web3, for example, provides a solution that there is no parallel on the real world, except by, means that are not exactly very transparent. And by the way, do you guys have any questions specific to TokenSpice or some protocol? Because if not, I'm going to show you guys how to access data so that you can generate analysis and then so that you can generate data sets for selling on the Ocean protocol afterwards.
Yeah, not for me. Angela explained it great.
So, okay.
I just want to make one remark because I feel this is really interesting. We also had at some point, of course, we discussed in the balance of simulations group, what if we create agents to optimize a pool, to optimize liquidity provider returns, or to maximize stability, right? At the moment, a balance pool is relying 100% on the arbitrage trades as being a service, basically, to this pool to balance this pool towards the external market. So the goal with arbitrage trade is always reflect external markets so that we don't have any artificial prices between two tokens. We have a pretty realistic price. This is arbitrage trading. And now but this can also be gamed, and this can drain value so that the arbitrageurs at the very end benefit most. And in the balance in an ocean pool, the data provider, the data consumer have some losses due to that. And now, of course, we can start think for balancer pools, for ocean markets, and for any other kind of market, we can create agents to counteract or to increase a certain impact or a certain direction, to drive a pool to a certain direction, for example, with dynamic weights changing or dynamic fees. And this was an idea for hackathons, for token engineering hackathons, where we have a very narrow scope and then just have a competition on create the best bot. And now think of the data markets again. The mission of Longtail, Austin, you probably know this, is build open intelligence for DeFi, for decentralized finance. So today, bots are pretty for, let's say, for all the pros in the DeFi space, the large wallets, the institutional investors, the VCs. It's totally normal to run a bot. They don't sit in front of their computer and sit themselves. They have certain investment strategies, and then this is optimized via using automated trading and artificial intelligence. But this is not available and accessible to a retail investor like you and me, or to DAOs, for example, trying to optimize their own pools and their own tokens for their own stakeholders. And of course, now here's closing the loop. A data market like Ocean can make agents accessible and make it open to everyone to use this open intelligence, for example, in DeFi. And this was one of the thoughts we had. Oh, the ultimate outcome probably should be not only a prize for the best bot, but also offering this bot as a data set and then create ongoing returns for the creators of these bots. Yeah. So you see, open universe of opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, it's a weird word. So guys, I'm going to walk through now about some data sources because I think that we already have lots of things to digest, but also because, I mean, we've been speaking so much about data, and I really want you guys to be able to, let's say, know how to access the data. And I mean, by the way, one challenge is maybe you guys could do analysis about that data, generate a second data set, and then upload to Ocean protocol. If you guys need any tutorial to do that, just ping me that I will give a help. So I'll share my screen here. So two data sources that I want to introduce. One is the Ethereum ETL. because, by the way, Austin and Xavier, did you guys know Google BigQuery, Google Cloud, and so on, or not?
Yeah, I know.
Okay, because I mean, Google, there is a product called BigQuery, which is essentially a big data analytics solution. It allows you to run SQL queries. And BigQuery does have several public data sets, which contains all the blockchain events on Ethereum, Bitcoin, Polygon, and essentially most of the blockchain layer 2 solutions on the blockchains that are widely deployed right now. And I have a link here on the HackMD, an interesting article that shows you how to use those BigQuery public data sets. So this is an interesting article because as a case study, it is using, one of the goals of that is to explore, let's say, how you could measure inequality over the wallets on the blockchains. So it does show, for example, how you could construct a query for accessing. And for example, this one here, you are getting, well, you are assigning a table here as debits. You use a heuristic here. I will not cover the details because for this example, the author has chosen to use a bit complicated query, more complicated than usual. And the idea is that by getting that, you can get, for example, distributions about what is the transaction fees that are being paid so that you can understand minor economies. It's using Bitcoin in that case. For most of the decentralized applications that we are going to deal with, like, for example, at GitHub, Ocean, and whatever, most of the time, the blockchain is going to be either Ethereum or one of the layer 2 solutions, like, for example, Polygon or XDAI. People always cite Bitcoin because Bitcoin is the famous closing, but for Hill development, people don't use Bitcoin. Hill development occurs on Ethereum or Polygon or XDAI. And also, there is some reference here to, like, for example, they use that query, for example, for computing the Gini coefficient. I think this Gini coefficient, I think it's for the world big countries. But there is a place here that they calculate the Gini coefficient for the top 10 wallets on several crypto, like, for example, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Maker, Ethereum Classic, Bitcoin Cash, Zcash. And by the way, one interesting challenge would be because the code for those queries, they are all contained here on the article. One challenge would be, what's the wallet inequality on Polygon or XDAI? As far as I know, nobody did it for those two. And they are interesting because, I mean, those two are very widely used by the community. And I mean, certainly would be an interesting result to have. But anyway, we can see here, for example, if we zoom in, that, for example, the biggest wallet inequality is happening, for example, on Maker. And if you take Ethereum is actually one of the smallest ones. Although, of course, there are several nuances. So, like, for example, you cannot associate a wallet to a real person. Because, first, one person can have multiple wallets. And second, some of the wallets, they are actually not being used by persons, but rather by protocols. So it's a bit difficult because the way that I would put is that measuring the Gini coefficient over wallets is just like, in a certain way, for example, in many countries, you do have physical persons and you do have corporate persons, which are companies. If you consider a company as being just like a person, in a certain way, computing that Gini coefficient is almost like, let's say, supposing that companies are persons and think compute the Gini coefficient taking account of that. So just some nuances, because, I mean, one thing that is keeps being discussed at crypto is the topic of, let's say, of symbol detection, of, let's say, how you can relate a Ethereum address to a person. This is not a solved problem, and I mean, there are several approaches for that. So one very interesting one, for example, is Democracy Earth. Democracy Earth, let's say, it's a protocol for essentially solving the problem of identity, but the way that they solve that is by essentially providing a universal basic income. So that, let's say, people doesn't have incentive, for example, to selling their identity and so on. And I mean, I'm going to link that. I'm not going to go too deep into that, but it's just to, let's say, showcase one of the projects that we have here that I think it's kind of curious, the development. But of course, there are other things here, but I also want to take the time, because we are sort of short on time. I want to introduce also to the Graph Explorer on the Graph. So one of the problems with ETL, this one from BigQuery, is that it's sort of pretty ham data. It can be difficult to consume sometimes that data. So usually an easier way to do that is by using the Graph. The Graph is a solution that essentially they do ETL on that BigQuery data. They use GraphQL so that you can have easier ways of accessing the data. So for example, let's select one here. Suppose that we want to know about, for example, Uniswap, or maybe Decentraland. Which one? Yeah, I will stick with those two. So if I go, for example, here on query, let me remember where it's the Explorer here. Okay. So if you get, the idea is that the graph, they have auto subgraphs that are maintained by the applications and platforms themselves. That allows you to play with the data that they have. So for example, for Uniswap, there is this playground tab here that you have several primitives on Uniswap, like for example, mint, burn, swap. And for example, if you get to those schemas, you could explore, for example, how the tokens are being swapped. So just to show example, let me see if there is one easy here. I'm going to search for a tutorial about that, because this is really a thing that requires a bit more time to go through it. I just want to show, tell you guys that, let's say, we do have those kind of data sources. So for example, we could get the IDs of how it swaps. Maybe we could also take the, yeah, I think it's a bit too short of time for me to do a demo of that. I'll send a demo afterwards on a link. But we are short on time. I don't want to spend your guys' time. I think that we still can have a round of questions. I mean, if you guys need any pointer about something specific or something that, I mean, is still not very clear. So yeah, I would like to leave the floor.
I just wanted to mention that Hydra will start next week. We are still in the background sorting out the timetable, actually, to have all people on board. This is why we haven't sent out the calendar invite, but we'll certainly start next week, Thursday. And there we will have a couple of sessions digging into AMMs. So what we have here with Uniswap is an AMM, Balancer is an AMM, HydraDX is built on AMMs. It's a concept where you have an algorithm defining the exchange rate between the token assets in the pool. It can be 2 at Balancer, it can be up to 13 now. So then it gets really complex. Nevertheless, it's always a very simple, basic concept. And so I think this will be also a good opportunity to gain a deeper understanding and then we probably can build on it, Danilo, these sessions.
Yeah, I think yes. So yeah, I think that we're sort of good on time. It was lots of things today. I mean, Angela has done excellent presentations about Ethereum markets and so on. I think there is a lot to digest for next week. So guys, there is the HackMD link. We are going to use the Token Engineering Commons channel. Right now it's named at GitHub. We can interact at async. I have updated the HackMD document so that we have all the links. So there is lots of content to dig in deep into that. And yeah, look forward to see all of you next week.
Hey, cool. Was cool to meet you guys and see you next week and then in the HydroDX program. And hi, Raul, by the way.
Hello, please send me the invites with the links for these sessions because just I was asking on Discord way earlier
Okay.
in Igaratá.
Okay, I'm going to send you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Good.
everyone.
Okay,
Thank
bye.
you all. Talk soon.
Bye.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
bye.